The loneliest object in the universe is not a dead rock in the dark. For a long time, that is exactly what we assumed it was. A world thrown out of its solar system, frozen solid, falling forever through nothing. Cold, empty, finished. Then we ran the numbers on what happens underneath the ice of a world like that. And the answer was worse, much worse. Because the loneliest thing that can exist is not something that is alone. It is something that is alone and warm and alive and has no idea that anything else was ever out there. Hold on to that. We are going to come back to it. And when we do, you are going to wish we hadn't. But first, you need to understand how common this is. Because there are more planets without a sun in this galaxy than there are stars in it. Not fewer, more. Which means everything you have ever been told about what a planet is, a world in orbit, a world with a sky, a world where the light comes back every morning, describes the exception. It does not describe the rule. The rule is the dark. So how do you lose a sun? Every planet begins the same way. A star ignites, a disk of dust and gas turns around it, and out of that disk, worlds start to build themselves. It is a violent nursery. There is no polite arrangement of orbits. There are dozens of bodies pulling on each other, swinging past each other, growing, colliding, competing for the same lanes of debris. And in that competition, the big ones win. A young gas giant drifting inward does not negotiate. It passes close to a smaller world, and its gravity does what gravity always does. It takes. It bends the smaller planet's orbit, stretches it, whips it around, and hands it more speed than the star can hold on to. And then that world is gone, not destroyed. And that is the part people get wrong. It is not smashed apart or burned up. It simply leaves. It keeps its mountains. It keeps its iron core, its canyons, its atmosphere, its oceans if it had them. It keeps absolutely everything except the one thing that mattered. It crosses the orbit of the outermost planet, and then it crosses the edge of the system, and it accelerates out into the space between the stars at tens of thousands of kilometers an hour. And it does not stop, because there is nothing out there to stop it. Behind it, the star it was born around gets smaller and dimmer, and after a few thousand years, it is just one more point of light among all the others. And then it isn't even that. The eviction takes an afternoon. The consequences last longer than the stars do. And the strangest part of all of this is that we can prove it happened, even though the thing it happened to is now, by any definition we have, invisible. So here's the obvious question. If these worlds are dark and cold and emit almost no light of their own, how do we know they are there at all? And the answer is that we barely do. You cannot photograph a rogue planet. There is nothing to photograph. It reflects nothing because there is nothing to reflect. An old one glows faintly in the infrared for a while, and then even that fades. Our telescopes are built to catch light, and a rogue planet is the closest thing the universe has to an object that has none. So we found another way. When something massive passes exactly between us and a distant background star, its gravity bends that star's light and briefly focuses it, like a lens made of nothing. The star appears to get brighter for a moment, and then it fades back. It is called microlensing, and it is the only reliable way we have ever found these worlds, which means we do not really discover rogue planets. We catch them, once, by accident. In 2020, a team led by Przemek Maruz, working with the Polish OGLE survey and a telescope in the Chilean desert, announced one of the strangest detections in the history of astronomy. A background star had brightened and then dimmed again, and the whole event, beginning to end, lasted 42 minutes. 42 minutes. That number tells you the mass of the thing that passed in front of it, and the mass came out at roughly the mass of Earth. An Earth. starless, unlit, unattached, crossing our line of sight for the length of a lunch break and then gone. We do not know where it came from. We do not know where it is going. We have no name for it beyond a catalog number, and there is no version of the future in which we ever see it again. Now hold that thought, because that single detection is not the frightening part. The frightening part is what it implies about the numbers. Microlensing only works when a rogue planet passes almost perfectly in front of a distant star from our exact vantage point at the exact moment we happen to be looking. The odds against any individual world doing that are astronomical. So when a survey catches even a handful of them, the statistics run backwards and tell you something staggering about how many must be out there, unseen, for us to have stumbled onto those few. In 2011, the first survey suggested there might be roughly as many rogue planets in the Milky Way as stars. That was already unsettling. Then the surveys got better. By 2023, microlensing data from the MOA collaboration pushed the estimate for small terrestrial mass rogues to something like 20 of them for every star in the galaxy. 20. Run that out across a galaxy of a few 100 billion stars, and you are talking about trillions of worlds falling through the dark between them. Sit with what that actually means. Not there are also some lonely planets out there. It means that in the Milky Way, having a sun is a minority condition. It means that if you picked a planet at random from every planet in this galaxy, not a special one, not an interesting one, just a random world, the overwhelming likelihood is that it has never seen a sunrise, has no seasons, no day, no night, no year, and no light. Earth is not the standard model with some sad exceptions drifting around it. Earth is the exception. The dark, drifting, starless world is the standard model. And there is one falling through the galaxy right now for every 20 stars you have ever wished on. So let's go there. Let's put you on the surface of one. Pick an old one, not one that was thrown out yesterday. One that has been out there for 1 billion years, long enough for everything that could cool down to have cooled down. You are standing on rock. It is solid. It is real. It has ridges and dust and a horizon, and it is a world every bit as large as the one you live on. Above you, there is a sky. But the sky is not dark the way night is dark, because night has stars in it, and night ends. Depending on where this world is in its long fall, the sky may hold a few distant, meaningless points of light. Or if it has drifted far enough out of the galactic plane, nothing whatsoever. And none of it does anything. Nothing rises, nothing sets. The pattern above you does not change in a human lifetime or 1,000 of them. There is no wind because there is nothing to drive weather. There is no sound because the atmosphere, if any of it is left, has frozen out and fallen onto the ground as snow, nitrogen snow, oxygen snow, the sky itself lying on the rock in drifts. The temperature is around minus 230 degrees Celsius. And here is the detail that gets under my skin. That temperature is not the lowest it could be. The universe has a floor. The leftover heat of the Big Bang spread evenly through all of space, about 2.5 degrees above absolute zero. That faint hum of ancient radiation, that echo of an event 14 billion years ago, is the warmest thing in that world's sky. Not a star, not a sun, a memory. Not all of them are like that, though. Some of them are still burning. In 2013, an astronomer named Michael Liu, using the Pan-STARRS telescope on a Hawaiian volcano, found something about 80 light years from here that had no business existing. It is called PSO J318.5 - 22, and it is roughly 6 times the mass of Jupiter. It has no star. It has never had a star, and it is glowing, not with reflected light, with its own. It is young, only about 20 million years old, still hot from the violence of its own formation, radiating at around 800 degrees. It has an atmosphere. It has weather. Its brightness flickers as it turns, which means there are clouds moving across it. And at those temperatures and pressures, the clouds are not made of water. They are made of hot dust and vaporized iron. Somewhere out there, right now, on a world with no sun and no name that anyone will ever live on, it is raining molten metal in total darkness. And this is what makes it so unsettling, because PSO J318 is not an anomaly. It is a stage. This is what all of them look like at the beginning. Every frozen, silent, minus 200 degree world in this galaxy started as something like this: hot and glowing and turning and alive with storms, and every one of them cooled. What you are looking at when you look at that object is the first page of trillions of identical stories, and you already know how every single one of them ends. And then, in 2023, the James Webb Telescope looked into the Orion Nebula and found something that nobody has been able to explain since. Orion is a star nursery, one of the closest and most studied regions of active star formation we have. Webb was looking for young stars. What it found, alongside them, were hundreds of free-floating planetary mass objects, Jupiter-sized worlds, drifting in the nebula with no star of their own. That was surprising, but not impossible. Here's the part that broke everything. About 40 of them were not alone. They were in pairs, 2 Jupiter mass worlds, both starless, orbiting each other, slowly circling a common center of gravity somewhere in the empty space between them, taking tens of thousands of years to complete a single orbit. The researchers, Samuel Pearson and Mark McCaughrean, called them jumbos, Jupiter mass binary objects, and nobody knows how they got there. The ejection mechanism we have spent this whole video describing, the gravitational slingshot, is violent and chaotic, and it does not throw 2 worlds out of a system together, still gently holding on to each other with their orbit intact. It should be essentially impossible. And the alternative, that they formed on their own out in the open with no star at all, breaks our models of how objects that small can condense. So we are left with roughly 40 pairs of orphaned worlds in the closest star nursery to Earth, doing something our physics says they should not be able to do. 2 lonely things that found a way to fall together, and we cannot tell you why. I find that beautiful, honestly. I also find it terrifying, and I have thought about it a lot, and I still can't fully explain to you why those 2 feelings are the same one. All right, this is the part I promised you at the start, and this is where it stops being about rocks. Go back to the frozen world. Minus 230 degrees at the surface, atmosphere lying on the ground as snow, a sky with nothing in it. Everything about it says dead. But a planet does not only get heat from its star. Deep inside a rocky world, in the mantle and the core, radioactive elements, uranium, thorium, potassium, decay, and that decay releases heat. It has nothing to do with sunlight. It does not care whether there is a star. It is heat the world made for itself at the moment of its birth, and it takes billions of years to run out. On Earth, that heat is why the ground is warm when you dig, why the plates move, why volcanoes exist. On a rogue planet, it does something else. In 1999, the planetary scientist David Stevenson worked through the physics of an ejected Earth-sized world and reached a conclusion that has quietly haunted the field ever since. Under a thick enough shell of ice, and out there, the whole surface freezes into a shell. That internal heat has nowhere to go. Ice is an extraordinary insulator. The heat backs up beneath it. And if you do the arithmetic on a world the size of ours, with a normal complement of radioactive elements, sealed under kilometers of ice. The trapped heat is enough to keep an ocean of liquid water underneath it. Not for a while, for billions of years, longer than complex life has existed on Earth, which means that somewhere out there, statistically, across trillions of these worlds, not somewhere, but on an enormous number of them, there is liquid water in permanent darkness, kept warm by the slow decay of atoms, insulated from a universe that is 2.5 degrees above absolute zero by a roof of ice. And on Earth, every single time we have found liquid water and a source of heat and a few billion years of stability. Without exception, we have found something living in it. So picture it, not a monster, nothing dramatic. Picture something small and simple and alive at the bottom of an ocean that has never once been touched by light. It feeds on chemistry. It has been doing this quietly for longer than anything on Earth has been doing anything. And above it there is ice, kilometers of it. And above the ice there is a dead frozen surface. And above that there is a sky, and the sky has nothing in it. That thing does not know it is on a planet. It does not know there is a surface. It cannot know that there is such a thing as above. It has no concept of a star, because in its entire evolutionary history, no photon from a star has ever reached it, and none ever will. There is no astronomy there. There is no night sky to look up at and wonder about, because there is no up, and there is no wonder, and there is nothing to see. The entire universe, every galaxy, every star, every other living thing that ever managed to open its eyes is, to that creature, not unknown. It is worse than unknown. It is unimaginable. It is not even a question it is capable of failing to answer. And it will live, and its descendants will live in total sealed darkness. And the universe will go on being vast and full of light for 100 billion years, and none of it will ever arrive. That is the loneliest thing that can exist. Not the empty world, the full one. And I know what some of you are already thinking, that it cannot be lonely if it never knew there was anything to miss. That ignorance is mercy. I have gone back and forth on that for a long time, and I genuinely do not know the answer. So I want yours. If a thing lives its entire existence sealed away from a universe it is incapable of imagining, is that loneliness, or is it peace? Tell me. I read them. Now let me take the last comfortable thing away from you, which is time. Stars are temporary. That does not feel true standing under them, but it is. The bright ones burn out fast. Our sun has about 5 billion years left. The small red dwarfs, the misers of the galaxy, can burn for 10 trillion years, but even they end. Eventually, the gas runs out, star formation stops, and one by one the last stars in the universe cool and go dark. The estimates put the end of the stellar era at somewhere around 100 trillion years. And write this down, because it is the punchline of the whole story. The rogue planets do not end there. They have no fuel to run out of. They are not burning anything. They are just rock and iron and ice falling. And there is nothing in the physics of a cold, solid world that requires it to stop. When the last star in the last galaxy flickers out and the universe goes fully dark, permanently, everywhere, forever, those worlds will still be there. Still falling, still carrying their mountains and their canyons, and, in some of them, under kilometers of ice, the last warm water in existence, slowly cooling, with something in it that never knew the lights were on. The rogue planets are not a strange footnote to the universe. They are what the universe becomes. The stars are the brief part. The dark, drifting worlds are the ending, and they will hold that ending for a span of time so long that 100 trillion years is the opening sentence of it. Which leaves one question, and I think you have already worked out what it is. There is nothing special about the worlds that get thrown. They are not marked. They did nothing wrong. Every rogue planet in this galaxy, every single one of those trillions, was once exactly what Earth is right now. A world in a stable orbit, with a sun, with a sky, with mornings. And then something passed too close. And things do pass. In 2017, an object called Oumuamua crossed through our solar system on a path that made it unmistakable that it had come from somewhere else. And then it left. And it is never coming back. It was small, but it was proof that the space between the stars is not empty. Things are moving through it all the time, in the dark, and we do not see them coming. The odds of a passing star destabilizing Earth's orbit and flinging us out are small. I want to be honest with you about that. They are small, but they are not zero, and across the time scales we have just been standing in, not zero is not a word that offers you anything, and it may not even take an accident. In 5 billion years, when the sun swells and sheds most of its mass, its grip on everything that orbits it loosens. The outer planets will drift and interact and rearrange. Some solar systems do not survive the deaths of their stars. Their worlds are simply released. So when you go outside tonight and look up, understand exactly what you are looking at. You are not standing on a normal planet looking out at a dark and lonely universe. You are standing on one of the rare, temporary, statistically improbable worlds that still has a star. A world that has not been thrown yet. That sky full of light you have had your entire life. That everyone you have ever loved has had their entire life. That every human being who has ever lived has been able to look up and see. It is not the default. It is alone. And every one of those trillions of dark worlds had one too. The universe is not going to tell you when yours is due. There is no warning shot, no signal, no slow dimming. The stars just stop being yours. So go outside. Actually do it tonight before you forget about this video. Stand still for a minute and look up at a sky that has things in it. Feel how normal it seems. That feeling is the illusion. Out there, right now, in the space between every star you can see, worlds the size of ours are falling through absolute darkness with nothing above them. And some of them are warm, and some of them are not empty, and not one of them knows that you are up here looking. They don't know anything about us. They never will. The void does not need to do anything to you. It just has to wait. And it is very, very good at waiting.